Deciding to walk away from a relationship is never easy. It requires deep self-reflection and the courage to face discomfort. Sometimes the signs are loud, like conflict or betrayal. Other times, they're subtle, a quiet unease, a feeling of being stuck, or the sense that you're shrinking instead of growing. The truth is, not all relationships are meant to last forever. Some serve purpose for a time, teaching us lessons, shaping who we are, and then gently or painfully revealing that it's time to let go. The key is listening to yourself. Are you sacrificing your peace, values, or growth just to keep someone in your life? Do you feel more drained than fulfilled? If so, it might be time to walk away, not out of anger, but out of love for yourself and the life you want to build. In this guide, we'll explore the subtle and not so subtle signs that a relationship has reached its natural end. Letting go isn't about failure. It's about creating space for growth, peace, and better alignment with who you are becoming. Chapter 1. Imbalance. There is a time in life when you discover that you have grown past some people. Not because they are terrible, but because they are stagnant while you are moving forward. Growth is normal, constant, and for the most part, stressful. Cohort, on the other hand, is the connections that are not necessarily built to expand continually as we do. Some people are like chapters in a book. They play a part in your life for a certain amount of time. To hold on when their season has ended is to rob both yourselves and them the opportunity to grow. Stoicism teaches us to embrace change, for resisting it only brings suffering. Epictetus wrote, "The key is to keep company only with people who uplift you, whose presence calls forth your best." A relationship that keeps you tethered to an outdated version of yourself, a self you no longer recognize, hinders your ability to evolve. Like wearing shoes 2 sizes too small, it becomes stifling, limiting, and ultimately painful. Psychologically, outgrowing people is tied to what researchers call personal development discrepancy. This occurs when one person's growth accelerates while the other remains static. Friendships or partnerships formed during one stage of life may not naturally transition into the next. Perhaps you've developed new goals, habits, or priorities while they remain content with familiar comforts. Neither is wrong, but forcing compatibility can breed resentment. Letting go in these situations isn't selfish. It's honest. It is acknowledging that staying in relationships you've outgrown can stunt your progress and rob you of opportunities to connect with others who align with your evolving self. Growth often demands solitude or new company, people who reflect where you are now, not where you were then. To walk away when you've outgrown is not abandonment. It is an act of love for yourself, for your journey, and for the person you're leaving behind, so they too can find their own path. Chapter 2. Nothing. Sometimes, there's no clear reason to let someone go. No dramatic falling out, no irreconcilable values, no abuse. It just doesn't feel right anymore. This is the hardest to explain, both to yourself and others, because the human mind craves reasons. We want something to blame. But life, much like relationships, is not always logical. The heart senses what the mind cannot articulate. Stoicism teaches us to trust reality as it is, not as we wish it to be. If a relationship brings you more unease than peace, despite looking perfect on paper, it is a sign worth listening to. Marcus Aurelius advised, "Never be ashamed of needing to break away, for it means you are freeing yourself from what does not serve your nature." Sometimes the only justification you need is that your soul feels restless. That restlessness is clarity disguised as discomfort. Psychologically, this quiet discontent can stem from emotional misalignment, where two people no longer fulfill each other's emotional needs. It's like two instruments in an orchestra slowly falling out of tune. The music may still play, but it lacks harmony. Ignoring this feeling leads to a deeper dissatisfaction, a quiet erosion of joy that seeps into every other aspect of your life. Letting go in this case is not about fault. It's about honoring that relationships, like seasons, change. To cling to what no longer feels alive is to deny the possibility of something better for both of you. Ending a good relationship that no longer fits is not unkind. It's brave. It is trusting that your discomfort is a compass pointing toward freedom and alignment. You owe it to yourself to trust that feeling. Like pruning a branch that no longer bears fruit, letting go creates space for growth, peace, and perhaps the unexpected bloom of something more fulfilling. Chapter 3. When values drift apart. In the beginning, differences in values or beliefs can seem insignificant, even charming, like two people gazing at the same horizon from slightly different angles. Over time, though, those angles can widen into a chasm. Values are not fleeting preferences. They form the foundation of who we are. When two people build their connection on different foundations, no matter how sturdy the walls, the structure eventually falters. Stoics often emphasized living in accordance with one's principles. Seneca reminds us, associate with those who make a better man of you. If a relationship forces you to compromise your deepest convictions, a house cannot stand divided, and neither can a meaningful bond. Psychologically, cognitive dissonance plays a role here. When your actions or compromises conflict with your values, it creates mental tension. Over time, you may feel resentment, frustration, or even lose respect for the other person and yourself. For instance, if you value honesty but are constantly around someone who manipulates truth, it's like holding a stone in your shoe. It seems small at first, but becomes unbearable the longer you walk with it. Recognizing value misalignment isn't judgmental or unkind. It's realistic. You cannot force someone to see the world as you do, just as they cannot force you to walk their path. The ancient Stoics taught us to accept what cannot be changed and act on what can. Sometimes the wisest act is to let go, not in anger, but in acceptance that you both seek different destinations. Letting go of those whose values no longer align with yours is an act of respect for both parties. It allows you both to pursue your truths without resentment or regret, honoring the growth you've had together, even as you choose different roads ahead. Chapter 4. Recognizing when to let go. Life is a flowing river, and relationships, like stones in its path, can either harmonize with the current or obstruct it. Letting go of someone, be it a friend, partner, or colleague, is a profound decision that requires courage, clarity, and self-awareness. Often, we cling to connections because of the time, effort, or emotions invested, convincing ourselves that perseverance is virtue. But Stoicism teaches us to discern what lies within our control. Holding on out of fear or guilt is not a mark of strength or some meter of pure love, but of weakness. A key signal that it may be time to let go is when the relationship distracts you from your aspirations. If you find yourself pouring energy into maintaining someone else's happiness at the expense of your own growth. Philosopher Marcus Aurelius advised focusing on one's own path without being swept away by external noise. Similarly, relationships that consume your energy to the point of self-neglect disrupt the essence of who you are. Psychologists suggest that the aftermath of ending a strained bond often brings a resurgence of personal identity and direction. This is not to diminish the connection's value. Every bond shapes us in some way. But like pruning a tree, to let it grow, releasing a relationship that hinders your potential allows space for better alignment with your true self. Letting go is not abandonment, but an act of self-preservation. It is choosing clarity over confusion, growth over stagnation, and freedom over entanglement. In this, there is profound wisdom and peace. Chapter 5. The Power of Letting Go. Letting go is often seen as loss, but in truth, it is a profound act of liberation. It is the moment you choose to release what no longer aligns with your life, trusting that the void will be filled with something more meaningful. Relationships, like all things, are impermanent. To cling to them out of fear, guilt, or habit is to fight the natural flow of life, as the Stoic philosopher Seneca wrote. It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. Clinging to what keeps you weighed down is the worst thing you can do with the life you have been blessed with. And psychologically, people find it hard to let go because of the sunk cost fallacy. The more effort and sometimes more passion we have devoted to a given thing, the more difficult it becomes for one to let go, even if that thing is detrimental to them. Some of us feel as though leaving would render our actions and efforts futile. But the reality is, being in something unproductive just amplifies that price. The Stoic approach reminds us, past investments are gone. The only thing that counts nowadays is how to build the future out of the present. Apart from being a sign of strength, not letting go is not a failure. It is the subtle power to choose your healing and expansion over the consonants we have grown accustomed to. It is recognizing that people enter into our lives for a reason or for a season, and knowing when to cut those people loose. Taking control to the extreme can be as damaging to the relationship as it could be detrimental to the soul. Love, whether it is the love for someone else or yourself, needs the other party to have room to breathe. When you surrender, you respect the past and the future at the same time. In a blunt way, it is an act of faith, trust, and courage. Life will go on no matter what, and your decision to let go, what should be relinquished, is your own way of going with the current. It is so linked with the great story of the new life, where one is liberated, relieved from all chains, and is ready to evolve further. Chapter 6. Letting go isn't just about release. It's about what comes after. The space left behind. This emptiness can feel unsettling at first, like a quiet room where laughter once echoed. But within this silence lies opportunity. The space you create by letting go is not a void to fear, but fertile ground for something new to take root. Stoicism teaches us to embrace what life brings and let go of what it takes away. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, the universe is change. Our life is what our thoughts make it. When you let go of a relationship or attachment, you're not losing. You're making room. Room for self-discovery, for healthier relationships, for passions you had set aside. Psychologically, this period of emptiness is essential for healing and growth. It allows your mind and heart to recalibrate. Without the distraction of a strained connection, you can reconnect with yourself. Research shows that solitude fosters creativity, clarity, and self-awareness. Like a garden left to breathe, after overcrowding, you begin to bloom in ways you hadn't anticipated. In this space, ask yourself, who am I without this relationship? What dreams, values, or priorities have I neglected? This is not about filling the gap immediately, but about honoring it. Sit with it, reflect, and trust the process. Letting go is not the end of love or connection. It's a return to yourself. And when you nurture that space with patience, life has a way of bringing people and opportunities that align with the person you are becoming. After all, endings are just beginnings in disguise. Moving on might take time, but it's worth it.